So you want to know why you keep getting injured. This is something that Yanni and I are very passionate about, and we've had another great question from one of our UMS online coaching members about just this. It's something that so many people struggle with, and it can be a really frustrating experience if you don't know what to do. But we're going to tell you the secret sauce.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Hi everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. That's my brother Yanni Burmeister. We're the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into superhumans. And the reason we get such astonishing results with our members is that we've created a program that has a balance between strength and flexibility. If you want to know how we do it, download one of the free blueprints, the Strength Blueprint, Flexibility Blueprint, or Nutrition Blueprint. There's a link in the description of this video. And also join the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. That's where we go live with these videos every day answering your questions. And
that's where we are.
And that's where we are. So let's, we've got a really good question today from one of our newest members of the UMS online coaching. I'm just going to pull that up on my phone.
Before we get into it, guys, give us a comment, who you are, where you're watching from. We want to know who we're talking to. I think I see Ashley Reed on the live stream.
Ashley, welcome, brother.
One of our Gym Tribe members. Yeah, I'd love to know who we're talking to.
So we've got a question here from Sean DeBalis. He's saying, "Hi, Regine Burmeister, excited to be part of the tribe. I've been listening to the podcast while working from home in Ireland, and you guys have really been an inspiration for me and great company. Thank you, brother. I've been doing the home workout series, but I'm being held back by golfer's elbow since last year, which is how I first came across Unity Gym on YouTube. I've neglected my fitness for the past few years and now find that every time I try to get back into it, I pick up niggling injuries which I've let derail me. I've booked a consultation with Phil, so I hope I can finally get this one sorted and build a solid foundation. I've played a lot of sports and done a lot of gym work previously, but never any calisthenics or flexibility training, so I'm looking forward to getting into the best shape I've ever been in." So this is something that Yanni and I feel very strongly about, because we've dealt with this ourselves, and we've had so many of our members deal with this. What are you laughing at?
Ashley Reed watching from bed.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Sorted. Well done, Ash. I like it, mate. So look, I dealt with this myself. I did Kung Fu for 13 years, and then I joined the army for 4 years, and then I got out and I was really stiff and I had aches and pains in my body, which is something that I had to deal with. That's what led us down this path of flexibility development. But I considered myself to be a pretty well-conditioned person. Like, if I did a workout with people, like if we went and did a HIIT workout or a boot camp workout or, you know, some type of circuit, I would be one of the high achievers in the class. But when I started doing calisthenics, I started getting injured, and I had never had these kind of injuries before. The ones I got, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, I had chronic pain in my wrist, which prevented me from being able to do handstands for about 6 months, or anything on my hands, really. And then probably the worst one, I got a slap tear on my right shoulder, and a couple of other little niggles here and there. And it comes from, like, you're conditioned to what you do. So if you've never done calisthenics before, or you've never done the UMS at-home workouts before, that's a different type of conditioning. Like, if you've never put your hands on the ground and tried to do pike push-ups before, it doesn't matter how much sport you played in the background. If you didn't condition those joints, you're an absolute beginner when it comes to those joints. But when we've done a lot of work in the past, we like to think of ourselves as being already good at something that we've never done. I know I did. You probably did as well, Yanni. And it's all about load management. It's about understanding the how to manage load so that you don't go over the threshold of what your body can handle. And it's this old injury intensity continuum thing, and or issue intensity, sorry, I should say. And managing how much you lift, how intense the exercise is, so that the weakest link in your chain isn't getting stressed to the point where you get injured.
First of all, most of the people that watch this as part of the UMS Movement Mastermind will have no clue what the issue intensity continuum is. Why don't
you explain it?
It's a principle in our Strength and Flexibility Essentials mini course, which is part of our UMS online coaching program. And it is essentially that there is it illustrates and explains the direct correlation between the level of issue in your body from a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you're so injured that you're incapacitated, incapable of exercise, and 0 being that you've got no injuries whatsoever. And it corresponds with the level of intensity that you can push your body to, the tissue tolerances in your body. And so obviously the opposites oppose each other. So if you've got a 10 out of 10 on the injury scale, then you do a 0 out of 10 on the intensity scale.
Isn't it issue intensity? I thought you used to always correct me on
issue intensity.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, you just said injury.
Well, I am saying injury because people won't know what an issue is, you know.
Yeah. You always correct
explaining
me on that, so
it.
I just thought I'd correct you.
So it's it basically just says that if you've got a 5 out of 5 injury level, we call it an issue. Then you can only train to a 5 out of 10 intensity.
So 5 out of
10. Yeah,
injury.
sorry. Yeah, that's right. And vice versa. And so it just helps us to diagnose and prescribe the right course of action when choosing exercises, you know.
And then the next thing to understand, and before we continue, we should say if you've got any questions on this, we'd love to know what you want to know, and also if you can relate to this, if anybody has any experiences that they want to share, please leave a comment so that we can respond to you.
What you're also dealing with,
I
can see we got a couple of people. Simon Morgan's just jumped on. I know Ashley's got an issue in his shoulder that he's had for a long time. I won't talk about it, Ashley, unless you comment saying you're totally fine with me sharing your
I'll keep
your issue.
I want to, before we digress, I want to just be a little bit specific to. I've gone off the thread. So what was his name?
I've got it here. No, I don't.
Here we go. Sean. So Sean. There's something that we bang this drum so much, and in all honesty, until every single one of you know this verbatim, we're going to keep saying it. The body adapts. There's 3 types of adaptations that occur to resistance training. So when you start doing resistance training like calisthenics, there's 3 main adaptations that are going on. The first happens to the central nervous system, and it's where you basically learn to recruit more motor units, or the larger motor units that activate the larger muscle fibers so that you can produce more strength. And that takes about 30 days before you can see a significant improvement, about 30% strength improvement in about 30 days a beginner can have. The next happens on to the muscle fibers themselves. The muscles become thicker and stronger. And that takes about 90 days. So that's when you start to see that you're like, oh, wow, look at this, I'm building some muscle. And the last one is the connective tissue, so the tendons. And that takes about 2 years. So what often happens is people get stronger, their muscles get stronger, their nervous system gets stronger, they can lift a whole lot more weight, but the connective tissue that's holding the muscle onto the bones, that's connecting the joints together, it hasn't caught up at all. So you're putting all this extra stress on, and then you start to get tendonitis and tendinopathy and golfer's elbow and things like that. So that's a quick breakdown of what's going on. So the overall strategy for you is you don't need to stop doing what you're doing, most likely. You need to back it off and do an intensity that's more suited for the weak link in your kinetic chain. So the whole tissue.
All of the tissues. The other really big important thing to address and understand here, and I will get to the comments that are coming through now. We've got some interaction coming through. The other thing to understand is that what you've done in the past, for me it was when I first started to really train in the gym, it was boxing. I had boxed quite competitively, very consistently, very frequently, like 6 days a week. We even did like cardio training, running and hill sprints and things on Sundays, so 7 days a week, but it wasn't specific to boxing on Sunday. I did that for a long time, on and off for about 16 years since I was a young kid, around the age of 14. And when I was first introduced to gym training at about 19 years old, 20 years old, I went into the gym, having trained at a high level for a long time, thinking that, I could just dive straight in. And of course, there was all sorts of different issues going on with my body that only became apparent when I wanted to lift weights and when I wanted to work out. I had really rounded shoulders. I had horrible, what's referred to as upper cross syndrome, sort of tight pecs, weak trapezius, rhomboids, levator scapula, those muscles that keep the shoulders back in place. And I had very poor neural connection to those areas of my body because I hadn't learnt to use them properly. And so my body just didn't know how to retract my scapula. My body didn't know how to elevate or depress my scapula. It knew how to throw punches really well, but it didn't know any of that other stuff. And so when I came into doing movements that required me to set my scapula in an optimal position so that I could press over my head or do chin-ups and things like that, I really quickly injured both my shoulders and ran into big problems. I even sort of started to dabble in breakdancing and gymnastics and acrobatics and really hurt myself doing that sort of stuff. And so a key...
Backflips in the nightclub.
Backflips in a nightclub, yeah, that's right. There's a key to understand is that despite what you may or may not have done in the past, it has to be specific to what you're now doing. If you've mastered running and become an elite level runner, it means Buckley's when you come into the gym and start lifting weights, and vice versa. If you lift a lot of weights and you're really fit in the gym and you decide, I want to do a marathon, and you take out to the concrete, pounding the pavement, running every day, you're going to end up with injuries related to running because you go in like a bat out of hell and don't properly adapt and condition yourself. And there's like fundamental things that need to occur in both circumstances to allow those connective tissues and the deeper tissues to remodel and catch up to what the nervous system can do, what the cardiovascular system can handle in the case of doing running or something like that, especially like going from regular gym training or martial arts in Rad's case to doing calisthenics. It puts different demands on the body, and therefore the body starts at square one again. And this is the big problem that we fuck up, pardon my language. We either train really to a high intensity, then take some time off and try to come back at the level that we left, or we enter a new practice trying to come at it at the level of intensities that we've been able to throw at our old practices.
Yeah, meaning if there was like 15 levels to calisthenics, people come in and think that they're ready for level 5.
Yeah.
And I did that myself. We did that.
We all do it. Everyone does it.
We came in and we thought, I really had tickets on myself thinking, I'm a strong, fit, relatively flexible person. I'm not doing the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And what I learned is that you have to.
Yeah.
And I tried for years doing it the wrong way and injuring myself, and went back to the start, and now being older and after having suffered some really bad injuries that we're getting told all the time that people cannot get rid of, like, golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, and a sprain to the wrist that meant I literally could not pull more than that without excruciating pain for about 9 months.
Yeah.
This is serious stuff. And when you look at tendinopathy, if you speak to someone like Phil, they'll tell you that once you've got it, it's very, very hard to ever fully get rid of it.
Yeah.
So to have beaten that is beating the odds. And then also something like a slap tear. But to come from the back end of that to being stronger and more capable now than I've ever been, it shows that our process that we're doing things now is an effective way to do it.
Look, I asked this question to the late Charles Pollock when he was out, when he used to teach his
workshops.
PICP, the Pollock Institute Strength Certification, and he made a statement saying that athletes, because I wanted to know, so he used to do a protocol of what they call structural balance, anatomical structural balance training at the beginning for the first 9 weeks of every new client. And I said, what about if you get an athlete, like a really trained athlete? And he said, athletes need it more than anybody. Yeah. And the reason is because athletes, and we've seen it here, elite level rugby league players have come in here, and they're the worst because they are so elite at their sport and so specialized that when you introduce specific strength training, their body still needs to adapt. They're going to have stronger tissues in areas of the body that you and I have, but in other areas of the body they're going to be as weak as anyone else, and they're going to have as poor,
Even weaker.
even weaker, and they're going to have as poor neural patterns as anyone else when they take to new movements that they've never done before, but their mindset is geared to at an elite athlete level. So they don't want to come in and do the beginner stuff anymore. They feel like they've surpassed that. And, rightly so. A lot of them have earned the right to have that ego, But unfortunately, their bodies will say otherwise. They won't agree with the ego. And so, Charles used to say all of his elite level athletes come in and start doing remedial training, despite what they've achieved, accolades. And he was talking about gold medal athletes, starting them off in remedial, like our foundations. Our foundations program is pretty much taken directly from the two people I learnt the most from for S&C, strength and conditioning, which was Charles Poliquin and Tony Battaggi. And it's a hybrid version of both of their programs, that we've adapted to our gym because we don't have
we've adapted it to our split.
To our training program, our training system, But that's who we learnt it from, And these guys are beasts at doing this sort of stuff. Now, this is the thing that most people get wrong.
Yeah.
They come into their training with an ego, and they come in with a set of beliefs based on what they've done before. And, you might have achieved high levels of success in what you were doing before, but it doesn't mean much when you introduce new stimulus.
And it's probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever go through if you're somebody that's passionate about training, because it's so hard to get rid of the ego. And if you've been training for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and then you come in and you actually really take that humble pill where you think to yourself, wow, what I thought I was going to be able to do as a beginner is actually going to take me 2 or 3 years to be able to even do that. Yeah. And that is one of the hardest things that so many people have to do. And it really comes down to identifying your weak links and then training your weak links, not training your ego.
It's about training you versus you.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. And I'll share, because Ashley said it's okay if I share his story. Ashley's a great example of someone who's battled an issue for years. And the main reason, and he knows this, we've had these discussions when he's in the gym, the main reason that held him back from overcoming that issue is actually just prioritizing overcoming that issue. Yeah. When you walk into the gym and you're in a training group in a great, motivating and inspiring environment with like-minded people who you're used to training with, and you're used to training on parallel with them, along with them, when they're doing heavy barbell overhead press, you're doing heavy barbell overhead press. When they're doing heavy back squats, you're doing heavy back squats. And then to say, okay, I can't do what these guys are doing, I've got to go back and treat my shoulder the way it needs to be treated. It's very hard because you've got to defy your ego, and that's the reason why most people don't ever overcome an issue. Now, and he's saying here, which furnishes what I'm saying, the at-home workouts are helping my shoulder. There's no pain at the moment, and that is because he doesn't feel obligated or attracted to going and maxing out on the barbell and doing bench press and doing those big lifts that the tissues in his body, although the muscles can do it, the connective tissues need to go back a few steps and really just learn how to stabilize again and learn how to do all this sort of stuff again on the deep foundational level, Yeah. Now, Carmine said here something that is not correct, and I want to just make sure that we address this early. So treat working out with injuries like working out in a deload week. He said download week, but I assume he means deload week. And I want to address why that's not correct, because the deload week is still doing high complexity movements. And often,
deload week is still high intensity.
And it's high intensity.
You're actually, in deload week, you're actually still meant to strive for improvements and increases in your strength and in the complexity of your movement. You're only meant to reduce the volume.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it's actually, it couldn't be more opposite as to what we're talking about here.
That's right.
What we're talking about here is that you reduce the complexity and the intensity.
Yep. Complexity is the difficulty of movement selected. Yep. So it might be, you're used to doing a barbell back squat and you've got to scale it back to a step up.
An Olympic snatch or a clean and jerk versus a deadlift.
Yep.
You've got an extremely complex movement versus a very a not so complex movement.
Yeah.
That's an example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're talking about what we're talking about here is talking about Cal. Oh. We're talking about we're talking about having a low level of complexity And then from there, like finding a level of complexity or a level of intensity that doesn't aggravate the injury, that doesn't make it worse, but that challenges it, and then gradually increasing it.
That's right.
And also a level of volume as well.
And guys, let me make this clear. Finding the right level of intensity and stimulus for your injured tissue may be a combination of a variety of things. It may not need to be a scale back of the complexity of the movement. It may need to be just a scale back in the amount of weight you lift in that movement. But in some cases, like Rad's where he injured his shoulder and me last year, you've literally got to go back and retrain the stabilizers and the scapular retractors. So it meant for a period of time not doing any barbell bench press or dumbbell pressing and things like that, you know. And sometimes when you suffer a joint injury, like a hip joint injury, you've got to go back and retrain the stabilizers. The more serious the injury, the more you've got to regress backward when you treat it. But most of the time, doing nothing at all is worse than doing the wrong exercise. So a lot of people make that mistake too, and they go, okay, I'm injured, I'll take 2 weeks off. No.
Yeah.
Why do you take 2 weeks off? If you get told that by a physio, they better have a bloody good reason as to why. And it usually should only be done. And I'll give you an example of this, guys. You know, I had a knee reconstruction 5 or 6 years ago, and I was told to take 4 or 5 days off. I was heavily strapped up to keep the swelling under control. And I was told to take 4 or 5 days of literally nothing but contracting the quadriceps and the hamstrings on the floor, sitting on the floor. Immediate exercise. And they butchered my knee. They had to remove tissue to create tendons. They separated the entire knee capsule, flushed it out, did all sorts of crazy stuff to it, rebuilt the ACL, fixed the MCL, shaved off bits of the meniscus, did all sorts of stuff. I had incisions everywhere, and I'm told to start training the day after I came out of that surgery, you know. And this is the thing, and I had one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the country. There's very little injuries that require you to stop exercising. And we've had Phil talk about this before on the podcast, and he talks about the only real event that warrants complete abstinence from exercise is a bone fracture. A bone fracture needs to set, and so any movement can impede on that setting occurring, and it can actually make the bone set misaligned. So essentially anything that doesn't involve a fracture to the bone, you should be training the day after. But the key is load management. You've got to be able to regress back to the point that suits that injury. And for me, after my knee reconstruction, it was literally just learning to contract the muscles again without any movement. Isometric contractions, you know.
Yeah. Alec is saying here, so you could aim for a personal record in lift while in deload week? Yeah, you could.
Absolutely. In fact, you should.
Yep.
You should be.
And Steve Kavanagh is saying, I can run a marathon with no training because I have done it for years. Doing other stuff like weights and this scapular stuff is so hard. Also a huge imbalance. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. And, you know, on the contrary, you have people that never run, and all of a sudden they've never run, or they haven't run for 20 years, and now they're in their 50s, and they say, oh, I'm going to start running, and they go, I'm just going to run 5Ks. Yeah. And they do one run, and they tear their hamstring or can't walk properly.
Guys, I'm going through this right now. I've just started running again, and I used to run heaps when I was boxing. I used to log kilometre after kilometre after kilometre every week, and it was a mix of sprints, stair climbs, distance running, everything. But I haven't run for about 15 years consistently. And so I've literally started by doing 2Ks. I run from my house in Lavender Bay down to the water and back. I go downhill to get to the harbour, uphill to get up. It takes me about 14 or 15 minutes at the moment, and that's literally all I'm doing to condition my legs again, and I'll slowly build that up, and I run at a very low intensity, you know, like I'm just plodding along. I'm not absolutely belting it. Do I feel like I could go harder? Absolutely. Do I feel tempted to go, I'll run across the bridge today and log a 5K or a 7K? Of course I do. But I will end up with issues in my legs. I'm 92 kilos at the moment. I've never run at that weight. When I used to box, I was 81 kilos. You know, I'm 11 kilos heavier than I used to. That's a lot more stress on my joints and my ligamentation system than I've ever had to endure running. So I'm starting really slow, and I'm going to slowly increase it. And of course, I'll be doing 10K runs in a few months. But, you know, I mean, even my partner, Kalisha, she's doing like 5 to 7K runs. And I was like I couldn't even go for a run with her because I'd be tempted to run with her, but it would just destroy me. You know, you've got to build up to it slowly and progressively, and you've got to run to the level that suits your weakest link, your weakest tissues in the body. You know, my legs. I'm going to go out and do reps at 160 kilos on the squat today. My legs are strong as, you know, my core is very strong, but for running, absolutely not. I don't have the conditioning in my tissues, in my ankles, in my knees, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in today. And
is that all we're doing?
Yeah.
We're done. Oh. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we will see you tomorrow morning.
Big shout out to everyone on the podcast watching. Hey, guys, if you haven't already, get over and like Switched On Physio. Phil has rebranded now. He's done it all, and he's launched his YouTube channel. He's also going to be doing a daily live stream to this channel. Big announcement. And he's going to be answering your questions on injury management and injury. So very exciting. Look out for that. I think he's going live 3 p.m. in the afternoon, Sydney time, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And he's literally just going to answer questions around injury, you know. So it's a very, very good resource that you guys have got access to. Quite frankly, phenomenal, invaluable. So get involved in that and get your questions in. If you tag Phil White in your questions on this page, I'm sure he'll find them and he'll answer them on the show. Steve Cavan is saying, huge, Phil. Absolutely. It's absolutely. Ashley Reed's saying, started a couple of runs in lockdown. Calf muscles are hating me. Stretch, brother. You have to loosen up. My calves and especially my soleus and my ankles are feeling it too. You have to make sure you keep your flexibility up. Otherwise, when you come back into squat, you'll have really, really affected negatively your ability to squat. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for the workout and then the morning motivation episode of Unity V.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to our channel and make sure you click the notification bell so you know when our weekly videos are uploaded. Now, the best thing for you to do if you want to stay connected with us and get free online coaching is to join our private Facebook group. It's called the UMS Movement Mastermind, and we go live daily where we answer our members' questions. It's very interactive because you can post questions while we're live and we interact with you on the show. You can also upload videos or pictures of yourself with any movements, any stretches, strength training movements, calisthenics, weightlifting, anything that you're struggling with, and we'll critique you, give you feedback, let you know how you can get better. It's a really valuable resource. It allows a lot of communication with us and also our senior tribe members. You'll get answers very, very quickly, and it's absolutely free. So jump on Facebook, search for UMS Movement Mastermind, and join now. Until next time, have a great day.